and welcome to another episode of Talking TRM, the podcast dedicated to travel risk management. My name is Bex Deadman, also known as Travel Risk Bex. And today I'm very excited because this podcast has been another one that's been a long time coming. I've had to convince him because actually he's much shyer than he comes across on social media. So I'm really, really delighted to have him here. And if I reminisce like I do as to how we met, I was thinking about this earlier. So we met at the Business Travel Show in 2023, I think, was it? Or was it two? I'm not, anyway.
No, I think it was 2024, actually.
Was it?
Yes, because I was just in my gardening leave after I was offloaded.
It was 2024, you're right. You're absolutely right. It was. And I was looking back and I was thinking, because Raj introduced us, and I just thought, did he do that because he just knew that we were just both really outspoken and we needed to be outspoken together? I don't know. I love the fact that he did, though. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my first question so that you can introduce yourself to our audience. Who are you and what do you do?
Who am I and what do I do? Well, it's a bit of a wide open question. So I'm Martijn van der Voort. I'm the founder and owner of a company called Astronomad. And I am consulting on a variety of things, but mainly in the corporate travel space and travel technology space. So my clients can be anything or anybody that is interested in travel technology, strategy, where are things going. So it could be investors, it could be small or medium or large TMCs. It can be technology companies that are currently outside the travel space but want a route in and need understanding. And then we obviously got the plethora of travel technology companies that are hanging around that need advice, right? So it's a bit of a mixture. And then there's also obviously corporates, small and medium enterprises that I often get asked to vet technology platforms from a buyer perspective. So that's it basically in a nutshell.
Which completely makes me now go, well, this is why he introduced us, isn't it? So yes, we are both quite outspoken, but we're also from the travel industry itself, coming into travel risk management. And there's actually not that many of us that do that crossover. So I was very aware of that piece because a lot of security parts of an organization are having to sort of bolt on to those wonderful legacy technologies that we promote so heavily within the travel management sector. And ultimately, they don't understand the technologies because why would they? And I think people like you and I, having worked both sides of it, both for travel management companies, but in slightly different roles, we have a deep understanding of the technology and actually its issues, the struggles, the problems around data, and potentially where all of this is going with AI, literally being rammed down everybody's throat at every potential opportunity, which is a good thing, but we have to really kind of get some people with some honest voices kind of trying to cut through the noise and really kind of talk about the direction and where it's going. So it's difficult, isn't it? When you were talking about the different types of customers that you're looking after, I think as consultants in this space, we're sort of bridging both of those things. So let's talk about what your interest is around travel risk management, because that's something that obviously you've been really passionate about. You're a mentor at the Travel Risk Academy. You're part of the Travel Risk Academy technology group. So where does all of the sort of technology interest for you? I've talked about my interest a lot, and this podcast is not about me. So where does that kind of all come together for you?
Yeah, I think travel risk I think it's a very personal thing, right? Some people are frivolous when they go and travel. Others are more cautious. You've got people that are perhaps not as streetwise as others within your company, so they need to travel alone. They all have different perspectives on what is safe, what is not safe. That's why I'm saying it's fairly personal. I think what we do, and this is why I wanted to join with you, and I'm grateful that you got me in there, that there is a number of people within the Travel Risk Academy that all have different disciplines, and that's what makes it interesting, right? We've got myself and a bunch of others doing the technology committee. We've got people that are ex-army or police or security services that can help you really drastically overhaul a program around, actual, physical security. I think that is very important. Yeah, for me, it's more the technology angle. I think there needs to be a level of safety by design. I think with all these legacy systems, specifically in the TMC space, over the years, they've grown, they've acquired, there's loads of silos. And then I think finally with technology, we can overcome that right now. AI will massively help streamlining data, cleaning data. The funny thing that I noticed at the last business travel show, they always have the innovation face off, and the company that won the innovation face off was actually a company that is not necessarily a typical travel company, right? So it was not a TMC or a OBT or anything like that. It was PredictX, and they're basically data cleansers, data warehousing, analysis, streamlining in general, right? Bringing all these data points together. That's what I found very interesting that they won. I love that company, by the way. I think they're very, very good. I think they bring something new. Having said that, and this is where I'm going to be controversial, right? Companies like a PredictX, right, or the lipstick, and it's you can engage with these companies, but if your core engines, your silos still continue to exist, and you're not doing anything around that, you're not investing in your infrastructure stack, right, then that is still the pig. So we're talking about lipstick on a pig. Now that will work for a number of years from now, but not for too long. Because in the context of AI, data is king, right? And it needs to be clean. If you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. And this is where it becomes slightly risky in terms of how are we dealing with travel risk management. I mean, it's very simple, right? If my data does not transmit true for whatever reason, my security company or my repatriation company or even my own manager will not know where I am. And that's why I'm saying there needs to be safety by design. There needs to be continuous investment. I think there is a lot of companies that talk a lot about it, but they're not addressing the core, right? And that is the problem,
It's the data, isn't it? It's the core data. So I'm going to do a session in a couple of weeks. In fact, it will be out probably by the time we release this podcast, but I'm doing it with Bruce, and we're doing it on AI, but also on travel risk management, because we have a plethora of data out there today. It's just that it's not being utilized in any way. Companies like PredictX, I love them too. I had long conversations with them when I was back in my TMC days, and we really wanted to do something quite innovative with them at the time, because it's around how you can use these data sources together to tell a story, to then understand where the gaps are and how you can then manage your program. Because when we talk about travel risk management, we're not just talking about the 80% that the TMC is covering, we're talking about all of your travel. And we need to be able to understand what all of that looks like. And actually using companies and thinking about other data sources can really support that. But I think the issue then is always like, well, then what do we do with it? And if you can't then translate what the data is saying, back into meaningful objectives that mean something to your company, to your travelers, but also to your suppliers, then you're just kind of stuck with a data source. So I think it's what happens next. And I think that's where travel risk management can really support it. And I think you talk about silos within your sector. I completely agree and felt it within the travel industry when I was doing my side of it. But you see it across security, you see it across HR, you see it across global mobility. Nobody's talking to each other, and it's technology that will link everything. But at the moment, we're just in this crazy situation where every department is talking to a different set of technology companies, and ultimately loads of them are doing the same. So loads of them have traveler tracking tools, and they're just bolting this thing on, saying, well, I've got this and I can put alerts through, and actually nobody's thinking about the core of the problem. So I'm really interested in this idea of safety by design, right? So we're reimagining this, how the standard can potentially support that when you're building out your programs. Because at the moment, it feels as though security, who are generally looking after the program, looking after high risk countries, trying to enable travel to these destinations, are doing it on the back foot, off the back of a travel booking going through. So very limited time to do their risk assessments and doing the best that they can in a really difficult situation with travelers who are a little bit uninterested in security. Quite honestly, it's the last thing on their mind. So there's not
That's
only
the last thing on their mind until something happens,
until
right?
something
And then
happens, exactly.
they expect it to magically be resolved, or something needs to
Well,
be
and they
done.
expect the tech stack to work, and then the reality is the tech stack isn't connected, right? So everyone just goes insurance, and well, if the it's just crazy as to how all of these different organizations are involved today. So I'm really interested to get your perspective on kind of what does it look like? Where do we go from here? Because each part of the puzzle thinks that they own this. So what does the
Yeah,
future
well,
look like?
I disagree with each part of the puzzle thinks that they own this, because I think the problem is ownership, right? In travel risk management at a corporate level.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sits with HR, sometimes it sits with security, sometimes it sits with a travel manager, right? There is no true governance. And
Yeah.
if we want to address the problem properly, there needs to be a level of ownership, and with ownership comes structural governance, right? Data quality is not administration, right? It's a safety feature. And that is very important. That's how people should treat it. Data quality is a safety feature in the context of travel risk management. So if your risk isn't visible at the moment of the decision making, you're not managing any risk. You'll be managing hindsight, right?
Yeah.
And that's the big deal. I think it's an ownership thing and a governance thing at first, and that realization needs to be very clear, and the right people need to be assigned, right? It also comes down on empowerment, right? Decision-making power. We can have any travel manager monitor a platform, right? A portal, and they can see where the travelers are. But what are they going to do with it next, right? If something truly happens, what are the processes in place? What are you going to trigger? What are your SOPs? What is your incident management process? There is a lot of technology involved in these steps, right? That the yes or no might not come from the travel manager.
Rarely does, to be honest.
That's why governance and that's why governance and ownership is so important. It needs to be very clear.
And it has to be elevated, doesn't it? I think that's what I'm hearing loud and clear from you, which is, of course, the mantra that we talk about. But yes, there has to be an ownership, but it's actually about a cross-departmental piece that actually keeps the whole company safe. So some people are going to have direct input, some people are going to have indirect input, but actually your travelers are going to come across the whole organization, as are your bookers, as are your approvers. So creating a proper evaluated travel risk management program means including all stakeholders and then having that responsibility with executive engagement right at the top, which we talk about and we managed to do for cybersecurity. I know organizations aren't all there, but it's a prerequisite now for a lot of companies to have cyber essentials or to have 27. We should be able to do that for people when they're on the move too. And I think that's what we're sort of trying to push forward with everything that we do. So look, let's just take this back to you and your kind of why in this space. So I know obviously quite a lot about your background and what you've done, but my audience doesn't. So it would be really interesting to kind of know why you're passionate about all of this. And yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I think, and I also have a Lean Six Sigma background. I've always been very driven by continuous improvement, right? If there's, I'm not a fan of workarounds, for example. I rather spend a little bit more time to find an actual solution that works long term. Now, that is always something that you need to sell because, we want to have very often, we want to have a quick fix. Okay, we've got the fix. Why should we change that? Because it's working now. And then we move on to the next thing. It becomes a budget item. And then we need to apply for it every year. And it rolls down. Very often travel risk management related items roll down. So that's why I'm very passionate about it. I think if you encounter a problem, you need to address it, right? There is no point in not addressing source and then cry about it later when something the same or something else happens and you could have addressed this, right? And the other thing why I am in travel risk management, I think we need to have the mindset of inclusion by default. So we should design for every traveler, not just some kind of statistical average or anything like that, right? I want my colleagues, my peers, my family, my friends being that may have some kind of accessibility or disability issues, right? I want them to travel just as safe as an able-bodied person, right? And we truly need to. I think that aspect is still a little bit misunderstood. I had a very interesting discussion with one of the major airports in the northwest of the UK last week. We were talking about inclusivity, accessibility, how technology can make the journey better, safer, less risk within the airport and with the airlines, right? These are healthy discussions to have. And I just want to be part of something that actively changes something, right? Sitting in limbo, like a lot of players in our industry actually do and seem to be content with it. I think that is the wrong attitude.
That's why I love you. So we are outsiders in this, right? And at the moment, it's a bit of a battle because actually, why try and change it if actually we've put enough workarounds now that it's actually working? And what we're saying is, well, because we're not seeing this from the front end, if we take travel risk management from the beginning all the way to the end, actually the travel management company looks after a piece of that with the online booking tool. But the security management company and their technology look after another piece. There's the assistance management. There's so much. There's pre-travel risk, which nobody is focusing on at all, which is a total bugbear of mine. Even, the norm is for companies to have a list of high-risk countries, allow people to book the travel, and then the security team, like I said earlier, trying to put all of the stuff together that they need in order to make sure that their travel is secure. And there's a bit of apathy generally from the.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think
this is how it should be. Like, they should know. The travelers should understand that this whole thing is for them. And when they do need it, it might be a little bit difficult. They might have to think about adding an expense line, but this is for them. And when it counts, they're going to be so grateful that they had it. But we don't sell it like that. And
yeah, no, I think just to jump in there, because there is a very interesting quote by a guy called Keynes, right? And the difficulty lies not really in developing the new ideas around it, but in escaping the old ones, right?
yes,
There needs to be a change of tack, really, in how we approach these things. If we feel that something is not working, and we also should not be jumping straight away in, oh yeah, the new shiny tech, and okay, someone has developed a new platform. Let's assess this properly. What is it that I want for my travelers? What do my travelers want? Right? Some travelers don't like to be having the idea of being invasively followed, but they need to understand why it is important that they are being
or can be
followed, that they need to do certain check-in buttons, etc., right? And I think with AI, it's going to be a little bit more easy to do stuff for travelers, like real time
helpful
warnings,
information.
Right? How can we send meaningful information to the travelers that we need to target, right? There is no point, and it always made me laugh this, right? There was at one point, and I know companies still do this, right? All of a sudden there is within the travel policy, okay, yeah, it's dangerous in wherever, some region, and now we're going to put a pop-up on our online booking tool and say you cannot book there, right? I mean, what's that going to do? You're going to target potentially thousands of travelers that use your systems. But if you look at the statistics and the data, there's only 10 of your travelers that regularly go to this destination, right? So why not target them alone? I think the whole piece around AI is very interesting. I am aware and talking to a bunch of companies that are actually in the data mining space. So they just mine anything and everything. It can be from tide times at the coast to for instance, tweets and social media around, is there a riot developing somewhere, right? They just harvest anything. So what could come out of that is, in the future, so you might have your agentic agent working for you. You will get proactive, real-time warnings saying 2 blocks down the road of your hotel that you have booked, there is a riot. It looks like there's a riot going to break out. You might want to stay in your hotel. Right? So this is going to be far more real time in future than it has been so far. And this is far more convenient for a traveler. It's personalized, plus it's a useful message, right?
Yeah, so they're going to want to engage with it more. And I think this is I'm glad that we've touched on this, because this is something obviously you talk about a lot in your posts, and you should check out what Martin does read about. He's not scared to be controversial in this space and to kind of call it out. The travel industry is all about smoke and mirrors, and it has been for many, many years. And AI can really change that. So this idea that actually agents, as we know today, may not exist, and actually everybody will have a personal agent. So it's not necessarily that you're working from your corporate company may have one, but you will also have one personally. And those things that the airlines have been trying to achieve with NDC and all of these yawn conversations that have been going on for 25 years, actually AI can do it in an instant. They can personalize it, can customize. Yes. The issue is there's a lot of bad data out there, and I don't think we will understand fully what we're doing when we're putting data out there. So there does need to be controls around this, but this is all about empowering and getting people to kind of understand. So with that in mind, and I told you this would all run quickly, look, we're almost done. Thinking about, I don't want to kind of spoon feed you what your top tips are going to be, but how can we kind of prepare ourselves for all of this? What are your top tips to people who are listening to this podcast and kind of want to know more around technology, where it's going, AI, wherever you want to go? Over to you.
Yeah, the argument I often have with people that are embedded with airlines, and I just went to an airline conference recently. The notion by airlines that they will somehow control the passengers' entire seamless connected journey is overly ambitious thinking. The connected journey will be orchestrated. With that, I mean it will be orchestrated by your personal agent, right? The airline is never gonna or should never control within their centralized silos anything that you do, right? They need to focus on flying people safely from A to B. I don't trust my airline for also servicing my restaurant booking, my shopping, my safety and security, my travel risk management. I want my agent and me to be autonomous and pick the right players for it, right? So what I'm saying with that is the orchestration, the card, the offer and the order will live with your agent. It will not live with an airline. And that is where IATA, I think, is still a little bit lagging in that thinking. And a lot of airlines are as well, right? Everybody talks about the connected journey, but the connected journey will not live in any of the current incumbent silos.
100% right. So this is so important to try and get your head around. That the idea of the future is that your data will be used as and when you need it to purchase a booking.
Correct.
And your agent will look at whatever the best options are based on your preferences and anything else you've asked it to do as you sort of set it up. But as it gets to know you, it will offer you whatever. It will then give you that information to make that booking, and then that information is not then the airline won't even have the right to keep that information in the future. It will just be for the booking. So this conversation, which I had years ago in Madrid, and I was just insane at an IATA event around NDC, this idea that the airlines wanted to own the data, that the TMC wanted to own the data. Like the only person that has ever owned the data is the traveler. And AI will enable that empowerment to take place. And I think that's the conversation that we need to shift to. And obviously that's the conversation that you can have. So sorry, I wanted to dive into that because I just think it's really important. And I don't think travel companies have got their head around this yet.
No, they don't. They don't. And this is, I think, well, some do, I mean, I don't want to really go into names, but,
I know, but yeah.
There is a bunch of them that understand it, but the reason they understand it is because they've got leadership teams in place that are doing the right things, putting the basic building blocks and infrastructures in place to make this happen, right? I mean, if you're still going to defend, and be some kind of gatekeeper and want to cling on to the old models, and I include in that, use of GDS, TMC commercial, money flows going back and forth, right? If you try to cling on to that, then in the future, you're likely going to struggle, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's about doing the right things when no one's watching. Not everything needs to, and this is, I think it's an embedded thing. Because if you're doing these so-called boring bits in the background that are actually building your foundations for the future, and things get highly technical, it's very often not very sexy to talk about, right? There is nothing to market about. And when you're going to market that, then it very often falls into very hollow terms, which are meaningless, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is where strong leadership comes in. It's not always about the things that are visible. There are things that are invisible, right? But you are doing the right thing. And this is very important because a business without, without good foundations, without trust, that's a house not built, a house not worth building.
100%. It's the why, and I think this is where companies are going to really kind of have to question themselves. Why isn't just about a marketing response? Actually, each organization kind of needs to have a why and a purpose, and that's what we're sort of talking about. That's what standards link into, and that's kind of what this new future looks like. So this isn't about the person that can shout the loudest or sponsor the most or do this, which is kind of how the travel industry has advertised itself now for many, many years. This is about being connected and understanding that you are part of a much, much bigger ecosystem. And when AI take over this ecosystem, you need to make sure you're visible to it and part
all
of
the
that.
travel, all the travel aspects that we now know that are all living in this bubble of corporate travel, right? Airlines, hotels, serviced accommodation, whatever else we have, travel risk management, data provision. These all become nodes in a much larger ecosystem in the future, right?
Yeah.
There will be less gaps between leisure and corporate travel because I have my agent. My agent will decide on the basis of my needs and will go down the corporate travel path if I need corporate travel. It will go down the leisure travel path if I tell it in my Apple Watch that I want to go on my holiday with my wife, right?
And it's such a, I think let's just go back to what you just said there just for a second. You're all kind of nodes within this ecosystem. I think that's a really important thing to get across. Like, yes, your hotel is important. Yes, your TMC is important. All of this stuff, but all of this stuff that we're talking about now won't matter. All that will matter is that you are visible to the AI agents. That is what we need to be. That's what companies should be focusing on, right?
One way or another, right? You know, the AI agent, my digital me will decide what's best for me, right? And that's where it will go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best piece of advice.
It's a bit more complex. It's a bit more complex than what I'm saying, as I'm saying it now. And there are still certain steps that we need to overcome. One of the biggest steps is boardroom mindsets, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest stumbling block at the moment. You know, people not understanding for whatever reason, or do understand it but don't want to action because of XYZ reasons. Can be anything, can be budget, or, you know, I'm writing this out on my pension, right? And someone else can deal with the future, right? There's a variety of things that we hear as to why people don't necessarily move or understand, right? But I think the education part is very important. And I think a little nugget is, and I wrote about it on LinkedIn a while ago. You know, look outside the travel industry, right? Look outside these echo chambers. Go to different events, you know, fintech suppliers or e-commerce or, you know, anything like that. See how it's done outside the travel and or corporate travel industry. There is so much more out there, right? And I feel that over time, it's all become more about, and this was logical progression, right? In the very early days when I started going into travel, in the technology part of it, right? People that were buying OBTs were very often still linked to IT departments, etc. Over time, it became the people that were responsible for it became more like relationship managers. Now, all of a sudden, because we had a, if you think about it, we had a massive lull of zero innovation, inertia, etc. Right? You know, I mean, this was happening. There was really not anything fascinating happening. Now, all of a sudden, we've got the big bang, so to speak, and there's people sitting there in boardrooms that are not necessarily able to get their heads around things very quickly.
Yeah. It's like the internet, isn't it? It's like there's companies that just won't forget it. The internet is going to be a fad. AI is kind of that now. But again, we just have to reimagine everything. It's just trying to get your head around. It sounds awful, but jobs that we do today just won't need to be done, because when AI starts to be able to learn properly, it will be able to do things. So we have to work.
I think the human will always need to be in the loop. I think.
Yeah, I agree. But we think about it differently.
The way a lot of people look at AI now, I mean, it's the same with these discussions about look to book, right? And there is a load of knee jerk and and panicky articles. Even IATA haven't got their heads around it. I've seen a white paper yesterday, and I'm reading this, and I'm thinking you might want to sit back on this for a little bit before you even publish that, because you clearly don't understand what's going to happen and how agentic AI is actually working, right, versus the current. What a lot of people trying to do is still trying to explain away the future with the restrictions of the past, right?
Yeah.
Talking about, well, how are we going to do that with the GDS, and how are we going to, and with my data silos, and how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that, right? Forget about it.
None of it will exist.
Pretend it doesn't exist, what we're doing today. Read up on what it will be, right? Or what it likely will be, right? And start educating a little bit, right? Yourself, basically.
Yeah, no, I hear you 100%. And I think that's the most difficult thing for people to get their head around, and especially within the travel industry. So look, I'm going to pick up some major tips I think that you've given people here, which is to actually kind of put aside the issues that you're facing today and imagine what it could be like in a world where data is free flowing. Actually, we're not reliant on the current systems, and where you actually might need to protect yourself in the future, and think about that in a slightly different way. And then as a supplier, actually, we haven't really changed the way we sell, the way we present ourselves for years. I know this from working in the industry, and the way we do things. Actually, what does that look like in a world of AI, where actually it doesn't matter about that personal relationship with that person anymore, because it's the AI that's going to find your product, not that personal relationship. Like, it's completely changing. So interested to get feedback on this from everybody. But I think don't be scared of any of this. It's just that you've got to approach it all with a very open mind and understand that it's changing, and it's changing quickly. Martin, look, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything you'd like to add before we finish?
A few little nuggets. Well, one, I want to debunk a myth. More alerts does not equal more safety, right? That's
loud and clear
for everyone to take away. Best investment, likely data governance, and equally, I feel, you need to start really thinking about what the future is going to look like. Forget about what it is today. Agentic AI is not going to go away. So design for orchestration, right? In simple terms, that means if an agent can't consume you, you're invisible, right? So whatever service or product you have to offer, if you're not ready to offer it, you'll be out of business. And I think also a key thing here is, trust your judgment. Scrutinize everything that's out there. I've seen marketing claims out there from incumbents and legacy players. Question everything at this point, because, and I shouldn't really be saying this, and it probably will bring a bit of bad blood, but I do want to end on it. If I would be a corporate travel buyer today, I would not necessarily run to my TMC for technology advice.
Well, I would agree completely, and I would have agreed with that years before as well. But yeah, completely. I think you don't necessarily go to your travel management company for sustainability advice either. It's all about understanding everybody's perspective in this and what their requirements are. And I think, the TMC is primarily not a technology provider, and you need to be asking advice from others, consultants like yourself, but obviously just get a wider view on what the technology spec looks like, which actually leads us nicely onto that lovely document that we produced with the TRA. So we'll do a little nod to that. You can contact the Travel Risk Academy and ask to see a copy of the travel risk management matrix that we've put together to look at the tech and data stack across travel risk management, and to give you an opportunity to kind of work out where you are in a maturity scale. So please do contact us or Martin directly, and we can set up a call with you and show you how it works, because it's pretty cool. Okay, well, look, I knew we'd go over, but I wanted to get into the AI piece a lot because, well, a bit. I mean, we've barely touched the surface, but I just think it's important because, well, everybody wants to hear about it, but there just seems to be a lot of noise. And for me, it just feels, again, like we're all shouting about something, but no one's actually moving things forward. I take a massive thank you.
Hold on. There are people moving things forward, but they're not in the current travel space or the legacy space. They're outsiders coming in, and they are coming over the hill very soon.
I hear you, and I think that's exactly what my nod was going to be to you, to say, you know, thank you for that being one of the reasons that you joined the Travel Risk Academy, because that is the group of people we are trying to put together in our space too, because we can carry on as we are, but it's not fit for purpose now. We're just sticking plasters on stuff. We've got a really good opportunity here to reimagine the whole landscape, and that's what practitioners like us are doing. So look, Martin, thank you. You are more than a guest. You're a good friend, and you have been now. And I thought it was so much longer than 2024. I feel like I've known you for much, much longer. We talk too much. But thank you so much for joining us today. I think it's been a really interesting and meaningful conversation. You have been listening to Talk'n TRM, the podcast. My name is Bex Deadman. Thank you so much for joining us. And in the meantime, stay safe.